Actually, sure. And now
Oh,
we're
it says a stream.
live.
Oh, it
Yep,
says stream this to your audience. Do I need to like click?
you do not. You are good to go.
Okay, cool.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Whatever Show. I am Dana DuBois, and things might look a little different today because that is not Lauren Swinnerman. Today is Fine Feminist Hour here on the Daily Whatever Show. This is my Feminist Killjoy takeover every Thursday. This is the second one that we're having today. This is the corner of the internet where we talk dating discourse, gender politics, whatever fresh nonsense the news is throwing our way as women. And today, my guest is the lovely Lana Lee from Love Me Like a Robot. I'm so happy that you're here, Lana. Good
Yeah, thanks
morning.
so much for having me. Yeah, I'm
Oh
really
my
excited to be
gosh.
here.
Of course. I have a list of things here to, as by way of introduction. Let's make this a little less formal. How about say hello to the crowd here at the Daily Whatever Show and a quick summary about yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Lana. I started writing on Substack a little over a year ago. I live in New York City. I just turned 37 and I have been on more dates than 99.99% of women in New York City. And my frustration with dating was so intense that I figured I would write about it because it seemed like I got a lot of positive feedback from people when I posted funny dating stories. So I was like, you know
Yes.
what, I'm in probably the very few people in the world have dated as much as I have. And I also am a chronic overthinker. So I have a very rich trove of personal experience to draw on in addition to my extreme overthinking, overanalyzing skills. So I turned that into my Substack, Love Me Like a Robot.
I love it. And you take a real data driven kind of scientific approach in your stories. How do you know it's more than 99.9 or 99.5, whichever
Oh,
number that you just said?
I was being facetious, but I am probably also not wrong. I am just aware of where I fall on the spectrum in general for a lot of different things. And then most people just don't stay single as long as I have. Most people get married by the time they're roughly 30-ish, and most people don't go on upwards of 100 dates a year. That's just not normal behavior. Most people have jobs and like lives and stuff like that. So I just knew that I was on the very far. I'm an extreme outlier in terms of dating behavior. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions for you, and I'm so excited to jump into all of this. I have a whole list of them over here. First, I do want to say we have a huge chat here already, which is so exciting. Yesterday morning, as we went live, it was real bumpy. We couldn't log into Substack for a few minutes. Then when we went live, the show had a big audience. I don't know what they pushed up the update they pushed yesterday, but the lives, if you guys notice, have a far bigger audience. We're already at 300 people, like a couple minutes
Oh,
in. So I'm so excited to see everybody here and welcome. Karen Murray Shelton is our moderator in the chat. And Lana, since this is your first time here, we tend to keep an eye on our chat, and I will probably up level some questions from the audience as it comes by. Karen, since there's so many folks here today, if you see a question and you really want to get my attention, um, please post it in the chat, or you can even text me because I have that open on my laptop too. I'm thrilled to see everybody here. And yes, Lawrence is weighing in. Please click the orange subscribe button in the upper left. We're real bad about doing that like YouTube like, and smash those hearts and click that subscribe button, but we should say that. So Lana's work is amazing. So please follow along. Phew, where to start? First, I want to say you're gorgeous. You're clearly brilliant and articulate. Why do you why do you think that it took so many hundreds of dates
well,
to find someone worth keeping? Because I know you're in a relationship now from reading your work.
I think it was a combination of things.
Yeah.
So I think probably I think the fact that I didn't find anybody for so long was more because of stuff that was going on with me. So
Okay.
first of all, I was really struggling with depression in the wake of like the pandemic, and then I also ended up gaining
Oof.
a bunch of weight. And to be honest, my confidence was actually fine. I was like, if they don't like me plus 20 pounds, then whatever. But I think I was not fully taking into account how much just not being very happy with my life. And like, I think my energy
Mm.
was not great. I also didn't I think I didn't have high enough standards as well. I think this is going to sound really strange, but there was this counterintuitive part of it where I had really read and internalized a lot of kind of like angry internet gender discourse about how women have too
Oh.
many standards and how they hit the wall and time is running out. And I tried to implement that in my life in a way that was very counterproductive. So for about year or two, I was like, you know what, I'm in my I was at the time I was like 33, and I was like, well, time is running out. I can't be too picky. I have to just find a decent guy who likes me and who
Mm.
wants to do this, and I'll try to make it work. And I wasn't and what ended up happening is that that just doesn't work. Like I think this is something
Yes.
that's very counterintuitive, is that you actually can't really
Yes.
like settling doesn't actually work. And I think in large part because men can people can tell when you're not that excited about them, and they doesn't feel good. Like people need to feel chosen. People need to feel that you're really like that you're choosing them, that there's something special between you two, not that they're just some person that happens to be sitting across from you that you're like willing to like give a try. Like people are looking for like like a spark or like chemistry or something. Like only like the people who really don't have a lot going on, were not they're not really able to attract a lot of people. Those are the only people who are like, sure, you don't seem like you're that into me, but I'm gonna like try to see where this goes anyway. So that there was that. And then
I,
also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
those are, I'm plus oneing you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then also, I wrote an article about this. I had some habits that really got in the way of connecting with people. So I did a survey. So at a certain point in the middle of 2024, it had been 2 full years since I had anybody go on more than 5 dates with me. Like every single guy I went out with kind of fell off after like 1 to 3 dates. Obviously, some people I didn't want to go out with again, but I still was like willing to give a lot of people a try, and like nobody was willing to go out with me more than like a couple of times, and it just felt really strange. So I actually texted 13 people
Yes.
that I had dated where they had either broken up with me or just ghosted. And I just said, hey, I'm just doing some self-reflection, and I wanted to see if you could give me like any additional background about why you decided not to pursue things romantically. I promise I won't be offended. And I was really not expecting anyone to be honest, because I think if anyone who's done a lot of dating knows that there's an enormous amount of silence. Like you just don't know why people lose interest, like 90% of the time. And most of the times when people tell you that they're not interested, you're 90% of the time you're going to hear just not feeling a connection, or like I
Right.
just see us aligned. Like it's
Wait,
very
here's my favorite one. Here's my favorite one. And it'll be interesting to hear if you get the same one in your age group of like, I'm just not in a place where I can be what you need. You need someone you need someone who's really ready and available, and I can't be that person. And the way that removes agency and passes the blame onward is like hate it. Do you hear that? Did you hear that as well, or is that something that
I would say I did get sometimes I got, you're looking for something serious, so I don't want to lead you on. The thing that I found more weird is that so many men seemed extremely nervous about leading me. I think I'm much more direct than the average woman. So men, like I always hear about men breadcrumbing or women, or like leading them on, or future faking, and I'm like,
yes,
yeah, that doesn't happen to me. Men don't try to lead. Whatever it is about me, men have no interest in leading me on. I'm like, no, you could like just give it a try. Just
lead me on a little.
yeah.
I really want to dig into the story because this is the story I found you through.
Mhm.
This one about I texted all of my exes. The exact title is right here. I texted every guy who dumped me. Here's what they told me. I found that I believe I found this through Tova Sterling, who's one of my favorite creaters, another New
Yeah,
York
that was
City
amazing. Yeah.
single woman. Yeah, she's incredible. That's like a um her dark and wise humor just like fills my bucket. She shared this and I read it and was like, oh my gosh, I have to meet Lana too because this is amazing. So I've put the story in the chat and so is Karen. Um, this is you going back to men who have rejected you
Mhm.
and like knocking on their door. And what was the impetus? What made you say, I think I need to do this? Was it personal growth? Was it like a storytelling impulse?
Um,
Um,
I
bring that
was
to life.
I was just really desperate. I was just really, really
Oh,
desperate. I had been when I did this survey, it was the middle of 2024, and then I had
yeah.
just been dumped by yet another person for another nonsensical non-reason, which was like we go to bed at slightly different times, and I said I would be happy to go to bed at your time, and he was like, "No, it's not going to work," and I was like, "This doesn't make sense." And I was just like exasperated at this point because it just felt like it had been like I was like, this is 7 years at this point that I haven't had a boyfriend. Not a single like
Mm,
there was one guy that disappeared the week after he told me he called his boyfriend. But aside from that, there's like literally nobody.
yes,
And I think I just reached a point where I just I couldn't accept that there wasn't something I was doing wrong. I think there's a lot of tendency like when and I think it's generally true when somebody starts dating and they're having issues,
yeah.
it's everyone dating is hard for everybody. I think
It's,
that is pretty much everybody that dates does not have a great time all the time.
I
Um,
hate dating.
yeah, I mean,
I
I
have a
think that's
continuum of the relationship things, and dating is just vetting, and it
yeah,
sucks.
it's hard. I think it's hard for everybody, and
Yeah.
and and again, men and women included, they just have very different struggles. Um, so I didn't want to like I wanted to believe initially that it's just because it's hard. But then when it had been so long and I had been on literally hundreds of dates, I was like, I reached a point where I was like, no, I'm doing something wrong. I can't think of what I'm doing wrong, but something I'm doing has to be wrong. Um, I I can't accept
Okay.
that men are just trash and intimidated because they're not. Like men are not intimidated by me. They're like absolutely not intimidated. Or maybe like two were, but then I never even met up with them. So like it just didn't make sense to me. So when I reached out to them, it was very genuine. And the feedback that I got was like quite difficult to hear in a lot of ways because when I
Yeah.
got it, I didn't really want to believe it. And I think that's very common, basically. Like a lot of times when people tell you things and you're either used to them or you don't really think they're an issue, you don't really want to believe that this is actually like the issue. You're like, nah, that can't possibly be. And in my case, it was vaping. Like so many men,
Yeah.
4 out of the 12 men that responded said that they didn't like that I vaped a lot. And in retrospect, they were like totally right. And I was horrible. I was like, I would chain vape during days. It was terrible. I was just, I don't know. I don't know what was wrong with me. But yeah, it was so funny to hear that. And then the second most common thing that I had control over was that I was too messy. That like my apartment was really messy. And it's like funny because my parents were like, "No man is gonna want to date you because you're too messy," and I was like, "Oh my god."
Oh my
So
God.
they're so antiquated and like they're from communist China and what do they know? Um, and yeah, no, apparently that was actually a thing
Oh my God.
for
Isn't it
people.
like, God damn it, my parents were right?
Yeah, it was depressing. And I really didn't like these answers. I mean in the sense that I didn't want to
Right.
accept that they were true. Cuz in my head, the way that I had been thinking up to that point was, yes, I know that not everyone likes vaping. I know that not people generally prefer someone neater, but if they really like me, if they are really attracted and they think I'm really smart and they're, think I'm really interesting and they really want to get to know me, like why would this stop them? Like I can always like
I,
change or like they would just get over it. And like,
Right?
maybe
I,
that would have been true when I was 23. I don't know, but it certainly wasn't true when I was 33. So yeah,
you know, oh, sorry. Go
oh yeah,
ahead.
that was the thought. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, because as you're saying this, I am thinking about how rare real connection is when there's like intense attraction meets intellectual and emotional compatibility. And if I met a guy like that, I wouldn't care if his apartment were neat as a pin or a complete dive. If that connection were there, I'd be like, we can work through that. That's just a circumstance. Do you think, first of all, it's great that these men wrote back and that you got the feedback. Like, I'm kind of astonished so many men wrote back. Do you think their answers were the full story, or do you think that they were an easy way to answer?
I think they were pretty honest. I
Okay.
don't think all of them were the. I think on average they were much more honest than I was expecting, and especially
Right.
the one guy where he was like, you do too many drugs, and I was like, what drugs? What drugs do I do that I do too many of?
That
And
was weird.
yeah, yeah, and that was very clearly like a really honest answer, because the answer was listing all the drugs slash perceived drugs that I did, and then also
It-
mentioning the mess, and then also saying I seemed like vacant, and like I think he was like
Oof.
I think he was right, like in the sense that when he met me, I was pretty depressed. Like that was early first half of the year. I was I was like not in a great mental space, and I think
Right.
it's really easy to discount that, to say, to be like, oh, that's sort of like, oh, excuses. If they're really attracted
Yeah.
to you and you're cool and smart, they're gonna like you anyway. But I think especially when you're dating in a very competitive environment like I am, where everyone I choose to go out with, I am not the only person that they could go out with. This is not like a
Right.
tiny rural town. Like this is New York City. If they're dating women in their 30s, there are literally tens of thousands of accomplished, beautiful single women in their 30s, if that's what they're looking for. And
Right.
so like if you're not at like the top of your, if you're not like together and seem happy and engaged, in addition to having sort of the qualities that somebody is looking for in a partner, it's, it makes sense that it's just tough. But like in my head, I was thinking this can't be that big of a deal. But then hearing it from many people, not just one, if I had heard it from just one, I would have been like, oh, that guy's a loser, whatever. um,
Right.
but hearing it from like four people being like vaping was a problem, I was like, okay, well, I think the second part of it is that like vaping was not part of my identity. It's not like it's if I had been told you are such an overthinker, and the reason why I don't like you is because
Right.
you're too analytical and you're an overthinker, I would be like, goodbye. Like you are just not the right man for me. Like that's a you thing. That's not like a me
Right.
thing.
And I
Um,
have to elevate, literally, Rohan in the chat just wrote, Lana is very analytical. Not every guy is going to like that.
nope, nope, that is true. Yeah,
Right.
no, a lot of men don't like it, and that's fine. Yeah.
Right. And we all get to bet on the horse at the race that we like the best. What's that expression? That's why there's seven horses in a race. Like, I agree with you. If you don't like someone brainy, opinionated, et cetera, like, let yourself out. There are other people.
Yeah, and
That's
I
not,
think,
that's immovable. That's a non-negotiable, right? It's part of who you are.
yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that there are certain aspects of us that may be stopping us from finding love, but that aren't important to us. If something is actually important to you, then obviously don't change it. Like you should,
Yes,
if anything, use it as a way to like filter people out. Like if you
absolutely.
really need to be polyamorous and that's incredibly important to you, and you can never be in a relationship that's not polyamorous, and make sure you say that up front so you get rid of people that are completely not okay with being polyamorous. But if you
Right.
like vape like me, and you're just kind of addicted, and it's not really, it's not like, oh, vaping is who I am. I run a vaping company. I like, it's like I promote it as like a healthy tobacco alternative, and I want to save the world from cigarettes with my vaping. It's not like that. So it wasn't important
No.
to me. So to give it up was not a big deal.
Right. And so you did make that change,
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
congratulations. That was really, dating or otherwise, that was a good change um, to make in your life. So um, that is fabulous. And there's a question that just came in, and I'm going to ask it now, even though it's a little bit of a tangent. But I think all of us who don't live in New York City, who are watching you, this beautiful 30-something analytical writer person, the question comes up of Sex and the City, which I just rewatched with my teenage daughters when Netflix reissued it last year. Um, good representation of dating in New York City, or is it like science fiction at this point?
I wouldn't say it's totally. I would say what's like kind of inaccurate at this point is that there's not like people used to talk to you more on the street. I think the sort of serendipitous meetings in person
Yes,
were more common before. Now, people still talk to each other, but it's not as common as it used to be. And
that makes
things
sense.
are things are very app based. Like a lot of like,
Yes.
and then apps weren't in Sex in the City, but yeah, I think
I,
yeah, there's more disposability, even more so, I think, than there used
I
to be.
100% agree. Could you imagine Sex and the City with dating apps? I mean,
Oh God. Yeah, and
right?
here it'd be like, and then Mr. Big rejected me, so I went on Field and I found a hookup buddy, you know?
Like Samantha with Field. I mean,
Oh
it,
gosh, yeah.
I feel like I could write a dissertation on Sex and the City. As a Gen X woman with Gen Z kids, watching this show that was so of my era when it came out, and now is both so dated and also so universal.
Yeah,
And
I love this
how
show.
yeah, I love it. And one thing, yeah, I don't want to go down a Sex and the City tangent too much, but there are some of the things that were so controversial then are so like milk toast now. It's just crazy. But to come back to your story, so here you are, you've gotten this feedback from these men, and do you this is a do you think feel, it's not in the data, but
Mhm.
do you think that these men were relationship minded and looking for a partner and had said Lana isn't the right person for me, or were these kind of there's always someone to swipe on again, I'm just going to keep going kind of chronic daters in your mind?
Um, there were there's both.
Okay.
Um, I think I think people when they're dating, this is why I've just really noticed most people think that they are looking for even the men, like even though they can be accused of not like and women. This actually I really think this applies to women as well. A lot of
Okay.
people think that they are looking for a partner, but when you look at their actual behavior, you
Yes.
notice that they're rejecting people that it's either that they don't have good intuition about what isn't feeling right about a person,
Right.
or they're just like yeah, their behaviors aren't really matching up with actually looking for a partner. Um,
Right.
I, I think that was one of the changes that I made was when when I did this after I did the survey. One of the pieces of feedback that I got was you didn't seem that into me. So and it was actually true, like, and I specifically went and cross-checked with men that I knew that I was like into, and I asked several of them, did I seem into you? Because I was like, do I just seem kind of, am I just kind of cold and distant as a dater? Is that like what's going
Yeah.
on? And the men that I was actually into were like, no, you seem very engaged, you seem into it. And then the men where when I surveyed them, they were like, "Oh, I didn't really get that much of a passion from you." Or like one guy wrote, "You just seem like you're bored and trying to pass time." And
Oh my God.
I felt
Were
so
you?
yeah, I
Were
was, yeah. I wasn't. I mean, the way that that's not my that wasn't my like that wasn't how I thought about it for myself. Like the way that I was
Yeah.
thinking about dating was I want to give men a chance. You know, like I want to go out with guys who, if they're decent looking and they have a decent career and they seem like they want to take me out, I want to give them a chance because maybe they're going to surprise me and they're going to show me something about
Yeah.
themselves and I'm going to connect with them once I'm in, you know, maybe like something will happen. And I thought I was kind of doing myself a favor and them a favor. Like I thought that this was like a good way to
That's
use
what the dating coaches tell us to do. Give men a
I mean,
chance, right?
like yes and no. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it's very I think it's very complicated and depends on like the exact person and their situation. Um, but when it I think a lot of times this advice, you have to really think about what your personal situation is and what you're dealing
Yeah.
with. And like the situation that I'm personally dealing with is that, one, I have no shortage of options. So I think that's not true for everybody. I'm very lucky in that, like, I'm reasonably conventionally attractive looking enough where if I wanted to get like a date every single night of the week, I could, like, but not with men that I would necessarily be excited about, but I could get one every single night of the week. Um,
You're
but
short selling yourself, by the way, with the like, I guess I'm passably conventionally attractive. Like the chat is lighting up with like, you're gorgeous, you're brilliant.
oh,
So
thank you. I guess, like, I was, and anyway, the
yes,
passage of time
you're
is
being
hard for
humble.
us all. Anyway, but like, my problem was more on the filtering side. It was
Yes.
less on the option side, and I think everyone has different like, everybody has different problems at different stages of dating. And then my problem was that I was being too open to dates with anybody, as long as they were. I even went out with a drug dealer, for God's sakes, but like, that's a separate story. But like,
Oh my God. Did he answer the survey?
no, I didn't survey him because he was nuts. I mean, he wrote a book about the drug. Anyway, this is a whole other side quest story. But
Oh my God, we could have so many conversations. I'm
yeah,
like
that
making
was just
mental
like a for
notes.
the plot. I think sometimes I would also just go on dates like for the plot, like, oh, this is so
Yes.
weird, or like, I flew out to Vegas for a first date in that summer of 2024, and then that did not go well. That was
Oof.
that was not a good guy. He was, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I've you be single for over 10 years and go on a lot of dates, and you will have some very odd stories about people. Yeah.
Yes, I am here from the future to tell you that yes, and that sense of abundance passes as you get older.
Oh yeah.
Um, and you touched on something, you've said it a couple times around giving men chances and lacking enthusiasm and how they can tell.
Mhm.
I'm going to put in a story of mine that we talked about a little offline before the show. This idea, the story is called How I Learned Not to Date Down.
Mhm.
And what I found in this eh, living, what I ended up writing about in this story was, yeah, this sense of like, not everyone is going to show up right out the gate and be, the man of my dreams. If someone is meeting a bar, like, why not go out and see what it's like? And what I found for me was that men were actually really unkind when I did that. Like, um, very dismissive. And it was this strange phenomenon that I took a conversation with a friend of mine saying, you're dating down and they know it. And so they're being cruel to you to take back power.
Mhm.
Did you find that was a phenomenon as you were dating these men who the ones who came back and said you didn't seem that into me? Um, did you feel that there was a pushback from them of them kind of sensing you were dating down?
Well, those two specific men, I wouldn't say that it was like down per se. It was just, I don't think my mind works that, I think I'm not extremely hierarchical in terms of
Yeah.
how I think about people. I If I choose to go out with somebody, I don't think of them as like beneath me because I'm choosing to go out with
Yes.
them. The way that I think about it is just that they may be not my usual type, or that I
Mm,
may not be as excited or like super impressed, but like, I think they're worthy of going out with, otherwise I wouldn't choose to go out with them. um and
okay.
I also am open to like the idea that maybe some other part of them I don't know yet is going to really dazzle me. So
Yes.
I don't really think about people that way. I feel like that's very common in a lot of the discourse of like high value, or
Yes.
settling or stuff.
Ugh.
But like, that's just not how I tend to think about things for myself. I think what does like I think the things that I do find a little distasteful in dating discourse
Yeah.
is a lot of the like very superficial arbitrary markers, like somebody being 6 feet versus 5'11". I find that very weird and random. Like, it doesn't functionally matter. Like, if they put on a pair of
No.
shoes, they're gonna be like
Is that
six.
a thing? Is that a thing that you found that like yes, tall men versus short men, but 5'11" versus 6 feet. Is
Well,
that
it's
something?
more like it's more like the apps will exacerbate that type of sort of
Yes.
choosiness. Or like I think also maybe I'm not sure what people do in private. It's more like people I think like to be announced that they have really high standards publicly, but
Yes.
that it may or may not have anything to do with how they conduct themselves privately. But like it sounds good to say, I only date super tall rich men because I'm like such I'm so in demand that I will only date like the best of the best. Therefore, I am
Oof.
amazing. I think there's a little bit there's signaling going on there. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, no, I would say that I the men that I when I that the men I went out with where I wasn't necessarily super impressed with them career wise. Um,
Yes.
I wouldn't they did not treat me better. If anything, the opposite. Just in general, this is what I've noticed over
Yeah.
15, 20 years of dating, um, is that men who were objectively more desirable and who objectively had a lot more options actually, on average, treated me better than the men
That's it.
who were like, yeah, it's very weird. It was very unintuitive for me. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I think there's some element of I don't know. I've had the same issue too with like jobs where I think I had like one boss where they were like objectively not very smart, like they could barely write a sentence, and they
Mm.
seemed to hate me. And then I had another job where the boss was like very smart and like she really liked me, and it was really strange. Like I'm the same person, I'm the same level of ability. Like why is it that
Right.
the smarter, more competent, more accomplished one values me more than the one that isn't? And I think there's some element of like recognition of like I think at least in jobs probably it's more recognition, but in dating I'm sure there's like both recognition and also a level of like self-protection. um
Yes, that was so the dating down story that I wrote. I was using the term dating down a bit glibly because I know it's kind of red pill rhetoric that one hears out there. Um, I liked the men in question, um, but yes, there was it was a, I'm giving you a chance, even though I can see, even though I like you, there are these qualities that are not particularly desirable of like either in level of attractiveness or professional stature, things like that. And you're hitting on something here that I hope that my story does as well. Of you would think that a guy who is like, wow, this woman is into me, and I know I'm not the optimum person in the dating ecosystem, you think that a guy like that would like come to the table and treat you really, really well and would recognize like, wow, this person is amazing. I'm so lucky. But in reality, it's the men who are already amazing who tend to treat you better.
Yeah, I think the way that I eventually the way I eventually try to make sense of all of this
Yeah,
is that the and I think this is how I, got ended up with my boyfriend, which is that dating
we're
is
getting to
really
him.
about choosing and feeling chosen. It's about
Yes.
it's about finding somebody where both of you feel really lucky and you both feel like you can't have done better because you're so uniquely idiosyncratically compatible in a way that you both
Yes.
know is hard for the other person to find in another person. And I think when somebody doesn't feel that sense of this person is irreplaceable and I'm irreplaceable to this person, if they don't have that sense of like she's actively choosing me because I'm doing something uniquely great for her, or and vice versa. I think I think what we forget is that for everybody, everyone is like the hero of their own story, and there when you frame things in terms of I'm settling for this person or he should have chosen me and felt like lucky to be with me, people are still like everyone has like a psychological immune system where they need to be like the hero and the protagonist of their story, and like if they don't feel that if there are that in that situation, then like they're not going to choose it.
Oh my
um
God. I love that. Everyone needs to feel like they're choosing and being chosen by a hero who sees them for what they want to be seen for.
mhm.
That's beautiful. I totally want to get to your love story in this, but before we do that, I want to talk about you. You had alluded to earlier that after you surveyed these men, right? You got really great responses from exes. Like bravo to the men for coming forward and giving you frank feedback. You made some shifts, right? You stopped vaping. Um, and then you mentioned filtering, that you were being too non-selective and giving people chances. Um, I know we're both familiar with the burned haystack dating method, which
Mhm.
is very heavily into rhetorical patterns for filtering. I want to hear more about your process. What did you do to filter as you came back from learning from your exes?
I think the most important thing was what it was rooted in what was important to me, which is communication. So
Yeah.
one of my girlfriends tells me I'm like a little needy, and I need a lot of texting, and that's true. I do need a lot of texting, and some men can't do that, and I think
Oh,
over the years I've just been like, plenty of men will send at least one text a day if they can't send one
oh my
text. Yeah,
God,
it's becoming a
yes.
recurring issue. So when I was doing filtering on the dating app, I would first of all I would ask for a FaceTime screen, and then
Hmm.
if they refused or if they like said anything derisive about it, I just knew
Yeah.
that instantly that they weren't my person. And then and then the other really important thing was, did they show up on time to the FaceTime screen, or if they missed it, did they like
Oh,
right away tell me, like scheduling basically. Like if they were not
okay.
good about showing up on time, calling when they said they would, or if it's something genuinely, if obviously if a genuine emergency happened, that's something else. But people would like miss the call time, never text me, then 24 hours later be like, oh, didn't catch you last night, like how
Oh
about we
God.
you know yeah, like I think in the past it would have been more like, oh, they haven't met me yet, so I'll just give it a chance. Or if I was like really excited, I would like try to give it a chance. But I think I took those signals like really, really seriously, and I just stopped talking to those people. Um,
Yeah,
as
you were
well,
looking for accountability,
yeah, I it just
right?
didn't work for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think in general, I think the thing that as well that there's a couple of phrases I kept repeating to myself, which like I would be like, if this man thought that I was his future wife, if he really like saw my Hinge
Yes.
profile and saw me as his future wife, would he behave this way? Is this how is this the kind of behavior that he would show towards a woman that he was really serious and excited to meet? And if
Right.
and I because I know for a fact that when men are really excited, they're like a little nervous. They're like kind of on
Yeah.
edge. They're like, oh my God, I can't fuck this up. I can't say anything. I can't say anything sexual because she might disappear. They get
Right.
really like on edge. They're really careful. So it was really helpful to remember, if he's not if he's not giving you that energy, or if anybody is not giving you kind of the energy that you want from a future partner, just don't continue with them and don't take it so personally. 'Cause I think that's like the
Yes.
number one thing that I've just noticed in a lot of dating discourse is a lot of like, why are people trash? Why is the dating pool trash? Everyone ghosts, nobody treats each other well. And like it's true, that really is tough and that's really out there. But um at the same time, those people are all doing you a favor. Like they all those guys that
Yes.
didn't like show up to the FaceTime or refuse to FaceTime, they really did me a favor, because if they like I was obviously never going to get married to them ever. So why would like I in another universe, if I had like gone out with them for 6 months and wasted 6 months of my life, that's like way
Right.
worse than being ghosted quickly. So I
Yeah.
think it's really important to it was really important to reframe that for myself.
Oh my God, I love that. It's accountability, and I love that framing of um it ties back to what you said earlier, if you want to feel seen and chosen mutually for one another. And
Mhm.
if a man can't show up on time for a FaceTime call, that's not someone choosing you, right? That's someone
Mhm.
who is quite casually dating and they are letting themselves out. Like,
Yeah,
It
yeah, it's
wasn't.
nothing to be mad about. It's like it's something to be it's a signal to be thankful for, not like a sign that all
Yes.
men are trash. Because like not all men are not trash. Like there are trash people in the world, and or people they're not even trash. They're just like not that into you, and that's fine. Like there's plenty
Right.
of men. Like I think over time, especially as I've gotten older, I've just realized I'm a very niche taste. Like most men aren't right for me, and that's fine. And I know that like for a very small subset of men, they're very excited. They're like, wow, I totally want a very cerebral, overthinky, weird Asian girl. Anyway, so like, but then there's plenty of men where they want like a very easygoing, agreeable blonde woman. I don't know who does yoga. Like that's fine. Like I'm just not that person. So I think the more
Right.
that you can try to frame things as this is not about me, this is that I'm just not their archetype of person, and
Right.
not make it so personal, and to really just focus on finding what group of people for what group of people am I their dream partner, and
Sure.
really just like narrow in on that small field and just try to forget about like all the rest basically.
I'm laughing. My friend Esco is in the chat and he just wrote, I don't know, we are pretty much trash.
No, they're
Thank you,
really not. I
Esco.
I have a lot of my friends are meant just because they think about sex a lot doesn't make them trash. Like that's
Right.
they're just easily just like distracted. That's all. Just distracted by their penises. It's a different thing. Or it's, intertwined, but not entirely there.
Right. Um, I love that you came up with an objective pattern of discernment. I am writing a story now that I was really hoping to have live before this, and I'm like, I'm bringing you back on to talk about it once it's live. It's around using ChatGPT in dating as an objective observer and provider of data to help me regulate my nervous system. So that
Mhm.
because this is the word I want to get to in this story is hypervigilance. I don't know about you, but I think we have a lot of attributes in common about over intellectualizing what's happening. And I came to find that by having vetting criteria through methods like the burned haystack dating method, where you have this like, they do this, you block them, you do this, you block them. I was so caught up in interpreting signals. I am. It's not done.
Mhm.
That's how I tend to run in dating because I have had so many negative experiences that I felt like my nervous system was tripping up. And so I've been um, using Chat GPT as an objective source of
I
like, is this doing, is this pattern shifting? And you were using your methodology of can they show up for this quite objectively, right? You weren't like looking at how pretty is their hair when they show up on camera. You were like, are is this person following these very simple guidelines? And if they can't, they don't meet the bar.
Well, it was multiple things. So
Okay.
it was like behavioral. So it was like, are they confirming? Are they showing up on time? Are they calling? Are
Yes.
they asking me out within the next like 24 hours? If they don't ask me out within 24 hours, next. Um, but then it was a bunch of things. It was like the other change I made was that once we got onto a call, I
Yeah.
had to feel I had to feel attracted, some form of attraction. I think
Sure.
there's a lot of men. I mean, if I match with them on an app, they're not ugly, but there's a lot of men we get on a call and I'm like, they're okay. They're all right.
Yeah.
And then there's and also men are really bad at photos. Like a lot there's been many times where a guy had very whatever photos and then I meet them in person or on FaceTime and I'm like, "Oh, he's really cute." Like that was kind of the standard was I was like, "Oh, do I feel like a little kind of like into it like physically, at least somewhat." Um,
Right.
and then also, did they display any red flags? So, like, if there was like one guy I got on a call with, and he was very much my type, sort of like a entrepreneur, like blonde. But then,
Nice.
and then I made some comment like, oh, about my dating experience, like, oh, like sometimes people make a sexual comment too quickly, so then I just, will stop talking to them. And then and earlier in our text conversation, I had made like a blowjob joke. It wasn't like a joke about giving him a blowjob. It was anyway. It was like sort of a blowjob joke in passing.
Sure.
Um, and then he like it was so fascinating. He had like a micro expression, like he for like 2 seconds, his whole face just suddenly changed, and he was just like he like suddenly like was like almost like muttering to himself. He was like, "Oh, but you made you a sexual joke," and then he like recomposed himself, and then like continued talking to me. But he clearly like I could like it leaked out. He was like, "Oh, what a hypocrite! You made a sexual joke though," and then it
Oh.
was like nothing. It was like nothing. He hadn't said anything. I don't know. It was so weird. But then I just sort of took that seriously. And he also didn't
Hmm.
ask me out. He took like 48 hours to ask me out. So I I just was like, we're not going to go out. And then
Really? 2 days and you were like, you waited too long, sir. Opportunity has
well,
passed.
that in combination with the like the leak, the emotional leakage,
Right.
where he showed that he was like already angry at me. He was already showing like anger and contempt, like in the like it was really weird. Like he couldn't manage his feelings long enough to just not show that he was upset that I was a hypocrite for anyway. So yeah, it was
Fascinating.
like those two things. I just like felt uncomfortable, and then I just sort of like stuck with it. And then it was really funny. It was like he ended up showing up in one of those "Are we dating the same guy?" groups, and some woman wrote,
Oh,
yeah, some woman wrote like a negative long dating experience with him about like him cheating. I don't know. Anyway, I was like, thank God I
vindicating,
yeah, I was
right?
like, thank God I didn't go out with him. Yeah.
Yeah, Karen in the chat is saying, I love that term, emotional leakage. And yeah, um that's a beautiful way to put it, that you were like, I saw a crack and I know that's going to be something much bigger.
Yeah, yeah, I think in general, like I think everybody has different things that they value in a person, but one of mine is emotional stability. Like I like a guy who's quite calm. Um and yeah, if somebody's not showing that, like it's
Yeah,
yeah, if somebody is not responding well to a boundary or to or to something that you said, and is already kind of giving signals of not having the quality that you want, then it's not a good match, basically.
right.
Yeah. And I think like
Okay.
certain people aren't necessarily always bad. Like some people like a more spicy like everyone has different needs. I just know that it wasn't going to work for me.
Right. I um Emotional leakage, like that's going to stick with me today. How often you see those signs and you ignore them because you're like, nobody's perfect. We all have our own way of moving through the world. But it's important. And I think the burnt haystack dating method does this part well of like, that is a rhetorical pattern. And in her case, she names a lot of them. I don't know that there's one for that in particular, what you just described, but acknowledging when you see something and believing it and
Mhm.
knowing that it could grow to mean something much bigger than the one moment is super important. I want to get around to your happy story because you are in relationship now, and it sounds like with a great guy. How much do you attribute finding him online to the work you did with this research of asking your exes, like what was wrong and why they didn't choose you?
Um, I think a lot because I okay, so the funny the punchline of this whole story is that after I did this survey and I made these changes, I had 3 men in 6 months where it actually progressed beyond 5 dates. So it really made a change, even though those men didn't become my boyfriend. I still
Right,
had much more success finding somebody who is like, taking me very seriously. And we were just like, eventually realized that it wasn't going to work out. So it was very
right.
different.
And the
Uh,
changes, just to kind of deep, were the primary changes that you stopped vaping and you cleaned your apartment,
and
or were
also
there
was more selective about more
okay,
selective about who I went out with, where they had to I had a higher standard for like the behavioral characteristics that they would need to
got
show
it.
before meeting. Um,
Okay.
yeah, where I had to feel somewhat more excited. Um, but the funny thing is that even though I made those changes, my boyfriend on our first date, I was talking about the survey, and then his reaction was, "Oh my God, I vape. Maybe I should quit. Do people really hate that?" And then he's like, "And I'm messy too." And our apartment right
Uh,
now is a horrendous mess, and the cleaner has to come today. Anyway, so yeah, we just it's really funny because I made these changes and did see more success, but then the person where I actually ended up with, like, surprise, surprise, actually had the exact same qualities that like
Oh
Yeah.
my God. That's such a you forgot cranberries too moment. You know that Christmas song, Christmas Wrapping by the Waitresses?
Oh, I don't know that one.
You would probably know the refrain. It's an old song that comes back every Christmas time about I won't detail all of it, but
Okay.
she's detailing it's Christmas Eve and she's detailing I am going to tell you about it. Uh over the course of the year how she's had all of these hits and misses trying to meet this guy and date him and things
Uh-huh.
keep one of them gets sick, one of them this and that and it's Christmas Eve and she's exhausted and all she wants to do is make herself this little dinner and stay home and relax. But at the very last minute, she realizes that she says, "Oh damn, guess what I forgot?" So she goes, puts on her boots through the snow to the grocery, the only all night grocery. When what am I wandering? I should appear in the line, but that guy I've been chasing all year, and they have both forgotten They're both doing the exact same thing.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
spending the year alone, and they've both forgotten cranberries. And
So
so that's the
serendipity. Yeah.
yes, the line. Well, and commonality. I
Mm.
said me too, but why are you? You mean you forgot cranberries too? And they
Mhm.
realize that they have this connection. So I call those my when you have those moments where you're like, oh, I thought I was doing something wrong, but your person is a match there, and it's actually a strength and not a weakness that you have these things that you're both working on.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
and
a
he
you
ended up
forgot
quitting vaping
cranberries too
too.
moment.
Yeah, he ended up quitting vaping as well. But I think somebody
Nice.
else asked me if I regretted making those changes, and I said no because it was like the most important thing I ever did for myself because it
Yeah.
made me realize that I had a lot more control over my over my life than I had. I think it's easy when you've been doing things one way for a long time. You sort of are
Yeah.
like, I'm doing everything. I'm doing all the things. I can't do anything else. Like I'm trying my very hardest and it's not working and it's hopeless.
Oh,
And then you get this kind of feedback and you're like, this can't be real. Like if they really liked me, they wouldn't care about this. But I'm just going to make these changes because I'm desperate. I'm just going to try something else. And making
right.
these changes was really important because it gave me faith again that that I know this sounds so basic, but I really don't think like myself or a lot of people really believe this, which is that it's actually possible to make positive change in your life. Like it
Yeah.
may not be what you think it is. Like in my case, I really didn't think that this would like I made this change and I promise you, when I made these changes, I was like, people are just gonna they're just gonna switch to some other reason to reject me. Like I was convinced that it was like they're just making up this vaping thing and this messiness thing. They're just
Oh
making
my
it up
gosh.
because if they really liked me, they would have like just liked me. And
Yeah.
and then I'm just gonna go out with guys. I'm not gonna vape. I'm not gonna invite them to my apartment, and they're just gonna be like, I'm not really feeling a connection with you. Like
Right.
I'm just like in a bad place right now. Like
Oh,
I was like convinced that that's what was gonna happen, and that actually was not what happened. Like that was literally the actual issue. Like I realized because the one of the guys that I dated for a while, where he's a great guy, but we were not aligned. We were just too different as people.
yeah.
And then he saw the article and I wrote it because I had started. I wrote like the first version of the article 6 months after I had made those changes. And then he said to me when he saw me in person, I'm so glad you quit vaping. That would have been an issue for me. And I
Right.
was like, wow, this thing that I have this guy right now, it's like literally directly because of those changes I made. Like it's like
Oh my
that
gosh.
that was actually the issue. Crazy. So yeah, it's
And
just
how,
funny.
yeah, how wonderful that it was something that was good for you to change. Like if they'd come back and they were like, oh, like many of them noted something that was, you're too opinionated or
Oh
you're
yeah, yeah.
too whatever, it wouldn't have been fixable. And you would have been like, well, taking out the trash. You don't belong here. But
Yeah.
these were things that made your life better.
I mean, like
One,
one guy didn't like that I took Ozempic, and I wasn't gonna change that. So yeah, like
that
I was
was the one who said you were doing drugs and the drug you referenced was Ozempic. I was like, sir, that's a medication. That's not a recreational drug.
yeah, it was a bunch of but yeah, that was one of them that he counted as like a bad drug that I was doing drugs.
Oof.
Yeah, I was like,
Oof.
okay, no, I'm gonna stick to my GLP-1s. Thanks very much.
Right. My self-care.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I would love to dig into that with you as well. I also take GLP-1s and have have thoughts about those. Um, one last question about your boyfriend. When you met him, when you got on this video call, which I assume you did with him because that was your vetting criteria, were you like that guy, or were you like, he seems okay? Like, what was your gut reaction to him?
I like my first thought was, oh, he has a handsome face. And then we had like a really nice conversation about I don't know, tech, I don't know, something. We were like getting kind of into like a topic. And
Mm.
then the funny thing about him is that he claims it's because he had just had like hair transplant surgery the day before our first date.
Oh,
So like I think he wasn't his healthiest. And then also he hadn't like quit vaping at that point. But on our first date, when he showed up, my first thought was actually, oh, he looks kind of like sick. Like his skin looked sort of like pale, like the color wasn't good. It was kind of like he looked unhealthy. And then I was like, my first thought was just like, oh, that's too bad. I guess I'll just like, try to have a nice time. But then like we kind of got talking, we had like a nice time, and then I was like, I'll give this another try. And then it sort of it kind of like grew on me from there. And then also I started feeding him more food because he wasn't good at feeding himself. And he quit vaping and we became healthier. And now he is very handsome and looks much better. So
yes.
it was definitely not like a instant sparks flu thing. It wasn't, it was like, oh, he definitely wasn't presenting his best self. Like but like at the same time, I'm also glad because if he were like less awkward and better at dressing himself and looking good, some other woman would have 100% snapped him up before, like I
Oh my,
would have.
oh my God. You're
So
so
like
funny.
it's like he's very successful and he like treats me amazing. So like 100% he would have been taken by somebody else if he were not so bad at dating. So like same for me. I would have been not available if I were any better at dating earlier. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're so funny. And there's a photo of the two of you at the end of this story we've been discussing, and you two look very cute and very
Thank
happy.
you.
And it was nice. I feel like there, and I don't just feel this, it's in the zeitgeist. There's this sense of it's cringe to have a boyfriend now. I've seen a few stories. Vogue ran one a couple months ago. The backlash against Taylor Swift for her Happy I'm in Love record. Um, I was happy to see a happy ending for you after reading this story. I'm like, fuck yeah, Lana deserved that. So,
Oh yeah,
to
yeah. No, I felt yeah, no, it's funny. I just always knew that this is something I wanted. I didn't really care if other people thought it was cool or not to have a
right,
boyfriend. Yeah, it's something that I've been wanting and working on for my whole life, basically. Um,
right,
and yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of like you should be happy alone and be happy being single,
yes,
and I think that is important, obviously. And I always when I was single, I remember one of the ways I would make myself feel better would be I would remind myself that like you'd hear about some woman being killed by her husband or like some abusive
oh
boyfriend, and then you just be like, thank God I am single. Thank God. Like because it's 100%, like, it's unquestionably better to be single than to be in a miserable abusive relationship that like there's
yes,
not even any that's not even like
it's
a
not even a question, right?
that's not even a question. So, singlehood is better, but I also don't think it's that controversial that if you find somebody that you really get along with and who adds to your life, that like being in a relationship is better than being single. Like it's not better than being in a bad relationship, but being in a good relationship is better than being single.
This is Fine Feminist Hour. So I will say there is a lot of language in feminist circles around, decentering men. And I think
Yeah.
those conversations are important. And I have gotten a lot of pushback as someone who, like you, has been on many dates because I do like being in partnership, and I've gotten feedback from friends and from online folks of like, you should just be happy with yourself and you should be happy being single. And I like that you are saying out loud that I'm fine being single, and also I'm happier in relationship, and that's what I want in my life, so I'm pursuing it. Because I think part of being a feminist is saying both options are okay. There's no shame in saying I am deeply competent and fine on my own, and also I want a partner.
Well, I think so. I tend not to have as many like moral prescriptions of somebody should be this way or shouldn't be another way. What I
Yeah.
will say is that my concern with the language around decentering men is that it's like for my the way that I think about things is more like, does this accomplish what you want for yourself? And I think
Yes.
the issue is that if you're decentering men, but it's more of a way to it's more of a cope. It's more like, I really want a man, but I'm telling myself that men don't matter, rather than this is what I actually
Yes.
want is essential. Is that if it's actually authentic to what you actually want, what makes you happy,
Yeah.
then you should do that thing. Um, but I also think that if if you actually want something, there's nothing wrong with figuring out
Right.
the better way to go about it, rather than deciding the problem is out there and is there's I have no agency. I think there's a lack of agency basically,
Yes.
where the truth is, yes, that other people, you can't control other people, and that not everyone out there is good, but there's also like a lot that people can do with their own situation, probably more than they would really expect, to like improve their chances and to put themselves in a better position basically.
100%. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. We are just over the top of the hour, so we are just about done. It's been so wonderful talking with you and about your wonderful article. I had actually had questions about two stories, but this one, it took a full hour to
Oh yeah,
deconstruct
are
this
there
one.
any audience questions that I should answer, or like I can't
You
see
know,
that.
I've layered a few things in, but there's more comments than questions that have come in. I can
Mhm.
stay a couple minutes longer if you can, if there
Yeah,
are
that's
audience
fine.
questions. And while we wait to see if there are questions, there's one question that Lawrence and I always ask our guests when they come on the Daily Whatever show for the first time. And I'm going to ask you that question. It's very hard hitting. It's
Okay,
not.
okay.
It's a very lightweight question. I know that you are millennial. We are both Gen X, and so I'm interested to hear your perspective. What is the most Gen X song of all time?
Is it my first thought, it smells like Teen Spirit.
That is, our guest yesterday picked that one too. Yes, that is probably the most picked song. That is a quintessential Gen X band, and I like that you didn't even have to think about it. But there is no correct answer.
Oh, okay.
There's because Gen X spans 15 years, and it can. Yeah, I'm not asking because it's a test and there's one right
Oh, okay.
answer, but I, we love to hear different people's perspectives of if you're thinking of a movie and that movie is supposed to be set so that you're at like a very Gen X scene, what music will be playing in the background?
I
And
keep thinking of Fight Club. So like I don't know if Fight Club is I think Fight Club basically sort of satirized Gen X, right? Like there was the main character who was like, I'm gonna
right,
rebel in my corporate job. So I think of like the song the Pixies soundtrack actually, but I don't know if that's actually
Pixies are super Gen X band.
okay.
What's fascinating to me as a Gen X music nerd, the music um, from the era. So we were born 65 to 80. So anything 80s and early 90s, early to mid 90s, I'd say is our coming of age music. There was such diversity in programming that there's sort of and it depends which era of Gen X. The people born in 65 have very different tastes than the people born in 80, and I'm
Right,
kind of
right.
a midpoint. um and also there was hair metal and arena rock, and there was new wave, and there was pop music, and then there was grunge, and they were all around at the same time,
Hmm.
and they all most of and then there was the whole alternative, like 120 minutes on MTV era of music. So it all depends on what kind of vibe of Gen X you're going for. But Pixies and Smells Like Teens and yeah,
Yeah,
Nirvana and Smells Like
Courtney
Teen Spirit.
Courtney Love and
Oh,
Annie
that whole record.
DeFeo, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's like the last era of people not having phones at all, I guess, growing up.
Yes, 100% of people who were not being documented and documenting in real time. Um, so yes, Smells Like Teen Spirit is a great pick, and I need to share this still, but Jason O'Dell, who's a regular in our chat, has pulled together both a Spotify and Apple Music now playlist of all the songs that our guests are picking, so that we have this Gen X playlist. I swear I will get it shared soon. Um, but Lana, it's been so great talking with you. I would love to have you back on for an episode where we actually share like screenshots of either profiles or messages from men we've gotten and do discourse I've done a few of these in the past. I call them my red flag roundups.
Oh God, I feel like they're always embarrassing for me because whenever I show these conversations,
Yeah.
they're always like, why at this earlier point in the conversation did you not like reject this man? Because I'm like continuing to negotiate with like a terrorist.
Oh
Anyway,
my
but yeah,
gosh.
but that's what makes the conversation so good is that they get more crazy at when I keep entertaining the crazy person. Anyway,
You're
but
doing it for the plot. You can
yeah, yeah.
always say I was doing it for the plot. I have definitely continued conversations before because I'm like, I need to see where this is going,
Oh,
even
oh,
as I've ruled this man
do
out.
you follow Lukey on Instagram? Lewky. He makes
No.
songs of like bad Tinder conversations.
Yes, I know exactly who you're
Yeah,
talking
he
about.
sings like my how many baby daddies does your daughter have? Like,
Yes.
but
He is so funny.
yeah, he does some really good ones. Like one where the guy is like, I have a cow fetish. Can you move for me? I don't know. It's so funny. Say potato, Elizabeth. I don't. It's just he's so good. The best. Yeah.
Yes, he takes the most absurd of the absurd conversations and sets them to song. And like Lukey, I didn't remember the person's name, but it's not someone I follow, but it's someone who shows up in my feed a lot. So um, super duper funny, and I really should go follow him. Um, I would love to do it from a like kind of burned haystack discourse analysis, where you're like, what patterns is this person showing? Not just what they're saying, but what's the language behind it that's problematic.
Jenny's approach is really at odds with most dating coaches. Yeah.
Yes.
Like there was do you follow Erica Etten? Like a little nudge on Instagram?
No,
Yeah, she you should
I've
look
never
at her
been.
account. She posted a conversation recently that Jenny would have like completely destroyed, 200% destroyed, where like the guy was like, I know that you already turned down like giving me your phone number, but I can't help but ask myself because this is like in my nature, is it okay if I pick you up for our first date? And then the
I
girl is
see it
like,
right here. I've got it open.
and then the girl is like, I don't feel comfortable. I'm gonna cancel our date. And like that, and then Erica is basically like, yeah, I think the majority of people surveyed on the poll were like, nah, you probably should give him a chance. But then Jenny would have 100% been like, no, he's already ignoring and pushing your boundaries, and he knows that he's violating your boundaries, but he's doing it anyway. But yeah,
Yes, the beauty of the burned haystack dating method is that it it is at odds with the advice that we get, which is open up, give chances. Where she is saying actually be more vigilant and give fewer chances, and it it saves your time and your bandwidth. And
yeah, I think I sometimes I wonder if she's being too extreme so that if people do implement
yes,
her advice, they just implement it correctly versus because if you follow her advice to the letter, you basically
yes,
will date almost nobody.
yes.
Including my boyfriend.
That's
Including my boyfriend would not
I
have
know.
passed her test. My boyfriend would have failed her test. It's so weird.
Yes.
Like I made that post and then there's all these like people that I think want to see me fail or something. Like there's like these weird comments of people being like, oh, is she gonna call him a red flag if he breaks up with her? Like, is she gonna look back at? But I really think that to some degree people like want to find more information than is actually there.
Mm,
You know, like I think a lot of times people are like, I dated this abusive guy. Like, what? Here is his extremely nothing burger 2 sentences in his profile.
yes.
How could I have used this methodology to figure out that he was abusive? And I don't really think that's the right like
It
question. I
doesn't.
think that because
Mm-mm.
a lot of most behavioral stuff comes out in behavior. Like it can leak out a bit in like in the
Yes.
initial communication. But like if his profile says I like hiking and I want to find a girl who likes hiking, and it turns out he's like a raging abusive alcoholic, like you figure that out through, unfortunately, through like behavioral in-person stuff, not through like looking at their language on their profile. Like
Yes,
it's
I
hard.
think
Yeah.
that it's a good method for ruling out some people as like for things that you may not notice because they're not super overt, like some guy who's just like you DTF, and you're like, okay, well, I'm out. That's not going to happen. It digs a level deeper and helps you cull, but it is simply a way of ruling people out. It's not a way of saying a
Yeah, and
foolproof way. Like I'm going to find if somebody gets through this method, then they're 100% great. I
yeah,
mean, you
and
still
and
have to get to know them.
and to be fair to Jenny, she does say like it's only a way to rule people out. You can't rule
Yeah,
people in. But like I do think that you have to have like realistic expectations with using it. And
100%.
but yeah, I think that would be really fun if we could pull
Red
together
flag
some.
roundup.
Yeah, I still I did I still have my dating apps are obviously all gone, but like I can still reconstruct. I can still log in and like pull up some old convos.
Oh, good. I have so many screenshots. Like I could fill it for an eternity of
What,
like,
what city are you based out of?
I'm in Seattle.
Oh
So-
my God, Seattle. I Seattle is really funny. I put my location in Seattle for like a week just to see what dating was like out there.
Oh my God. Okay, we're so over time. We have to dive. I really want to hear the difference dating in Seattle versus New York because I have a lot of theories of what men in Seattle are like, and I want to hear what your experience was. I'm also trying to get Jenny Young from Burnt Haystack on the show.
She
I've
might
been,
do it for book promo reasons because she has to promote her book. So
I know. So
maybe she has like a publicist. I hope she has a publicist at
she
this.
does. She does. She wrote me back and said, talk to me in January once my publicist is reaching out. And so I've messaged once, but I know they're getting flooded. So I'm going to message them again today and be like, hey, girl, hey, it's time. We need you
Yeah,
on the show,
yeah.
man. I hope so. All right, we're really going to sign off now. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Thank you to everyone in the chat. I'm floored by how many people are here and how many amazing comments have been coming in. Actually, my screen has frozen, which means people were probably clicking the heart button a lot. Let me hit refresh. Um, yeah, we're at 575 people, Lana.
Yeah.
We got a big crowd here. And Ginger is saying, what a fresh experience. Thanks, Dana and Lana from Jessica. You all are so welcome. You're the best. And I will post this recap shortly. So if you missed some of it, you can go back and hear it all. Um, have a wonderful rest of your day,
All
Lana, and
right.
everyone else.
Thanks
Love
for
you,
having
mean
me on.
it. Bye.
Bye.